with that, we're going to start from the top of Lamed Zayin Amid Aleph. We are in the middle of a machlekes, a fascinating machlekes. The machlekes being, how does Sukkah and Daled Minim correlate? It's fascinating machlekes that we had yesterday. And we have this incredible Shitas Rabbi Yehuda that says, and we're just going to begin with what the machlekes was to remind ourselves as we dive back in. And I'll be honest, I'm sure some of you did Chazar. I did not open my Gemara since last night. So this is partially reminding my own self. That says Rabbi Yehuda, Ein Sukkah Noiheges, Elo B'Dalin Minim. A fascinating sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. Rameir holds no. Rameir holds your sukkah could be made of anything. And last night we had the incredible drasha of Rabbi Yehuda, that Kal V'Chomer, which was difficult to understand. And they responded to Rabbi Yehuda on the top of Lamed Zayin Amar Aleph. The end of their response was V'Hatayra Amra V'Sukkah Steishu Shivas Yamim Sukkah Shel Kol Davar. So we're mamish in the middle of a sentence almost in explaining that to say, like Rabbi Yehuda, that a sukkah is limited to being of the Daled Minim, and I want to remind what everyone said last night, a beautiful line. Ba'ilam asked, is it talking about the walls of the sukkah or the schach? And I responded that in the words of the Gemara, you would think it's everything. Someone said, maybe it was you, Ram Nachman, I remember, maybe it was you, that the al schach, right? We all remember the Rashi from the very beginning of the Masechta. When we say sukkah, right? Al shema schach, kari sukkah, that first Mishnah, that a sukkah is the schach. So hopefully we'll get more of that today. So we're on the top of Lamed Zayin Amar Aleph, and says the Gemara, v'chein be'ezra. And similarly, by Ezra says the pasuk, Se'u, Omer it says, Se'u, go out. It's a pasuk in Nehemiah. Se'u, go out to Har. Ve'viu Eli, and bring to me. Ve'viu, and bring Ale Zayis, the branches. Ale is the branches. Not, don't read it like I just read it like a turkey Eli. It's Ale. It's Ale. Says the Gemara, bring the Ale Zayis, the branches, the leaves of the Zayis. Va'ali eats shemen, and the leaves of the olive wood. Va'ali hadas, va'ali tamarim, va'ali eats avois, la'asois, or va'asu, two different kirsais, sukois, to make, no, did I skip? Va'ali eats avois, excuse me. La'asois, sukois, karkosov, that's the end of the pasuk. End of the pasuk says, it's a little bit confusing. Karkosov is the end of the pasuk. La'asois sukois karkosov, to make a sukkah like the pasuk says. So what do we see over here? We see that when Ezra or Nehemiah was telling Klal Yisrael how to make a sukkah, what were the ingredients? Were the ingredients limited to the Daled Minim? No. We have all these other fascinating items. Ali Tavois, Ali Shemen, Ali Tamarim. So proves the Gemara, a second proof that your sukkah can be made out of anything, not like Shitas Rabbi Yehuda. What's the problem? Problem is, Rabbi Yehuda, what do you hold? Rabbi Yehuda holds that your sukkah has to be made of the Daled Minim. But we just brought down two psukim that seemingly indicate your sukkah can be made out of anything. And here, really, everything's going to come full circle. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihiyeh b'dvarei.
But we also know that a sukkah can't be made out of anything.
We already know some din about the schach. We know it has to grow from the ground. You know, can't be makabel tuma. But does it have to be limited to the Daled Minim? Says the Gemara of Rabbi Yehuda, Savar. What does Rabbi Yehuda hold? Honey, these. What's these? All these other items that we just learned in the psukim that could, yes, be made into your sukkah. All the items aside for the Daled Minim. Honey, these. Lidifa, noise. There it is. For the walls. Ali Hadas. Ali Tamarim. Ali Eitz Avois. Lischach. Says Rabbi Yehuda, the pasuk that you just brought is a proof to me. What do you mean? Didn't the pasuk include everything? Says Rabbi Yehuda, yeah. split the pasuk in half. The first part of the pasuk when it talk about, actually the end of the pasuk when it talks, well, it's actually, it's not the end, it's at the middle, so it's shtickle shmushy. But within the pasuk, I'll say it that way, within the pasuk when it talks about Ali Zayis, that's about the walls. When the pasuk says Ali Hadas, Tamarim Eitz Avos, which by the way, that is the lulav, that is the Hadas, and that is the Arava, of course, that is Lischach. So if Yehuda responds that I'm masking to your pasuk, but it's partially for the walls and partially for the schach. I don't know. Interesting. Interesting. Happens to be in Eretz Yisrael. Fascinating detail. Many, the old school schach were lulav, meaning were those palm frond branches that they ripped off the tree, the ones that weren't lulavim, the hard ones, or the ones that are all spread out. That's what people use even now. Even now, people still do that. You see them schlepping these things. So it is interesting, but that's the machlekes. Says the Gemara. This is really wrapping up the end of the sugya from after the Mishnah. Utinan, and we learned in a Mishnah. Utinan. And we learned in a Mishnah, Misachechin bin Nisarin. It's a Mishnah all the way back in Daf Yudalid. Says the Mishnah, Misachechin bin Nisarin. You're allowed to make schach out of Nisarim, out of planks of wood. Tivri Rabbi Yehuda. Just to catch everyone up on what we learned way back then. We had a Mishnah, and the Mishnah spoke about, come, Kimdi Chavernu, move away the standard, come, sit. Yishar b'makom baruch Hashem, makom balev. Oh, that's the way it should be. I was worried we're gonna have extra food. Look at that. Says the Gemara. Let's remind ourselves of the Mishnah that we learned. We learned a Mishnah about putting planks of wood as schach. What would be the problem of planks of wood as schach? So if you remember, there was a potential gzeira dirabanan, very good, that it feels like you're in a house. If you have a sukkah that you have big planks of wood as your schach, and it's all it doesn't have is the cement between the planks of wood, it feels like a house. Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. It feels like a house, and because it feels like a house, there was a potential gzeira dirabanan. You can't be in such a sukkah. Why? Because someone might mistakenly think you're allowed to sit inside your house. But Rabbi Yehuda said no. Rabbi Yehuda said there's no gzeira. You're allowed to sit under nisarim, under planks of wood. Says the Gemara, Alma, what do we see? What just happened? Are planks of wood the Dalan Minim? So, but the Mishnah said nisarim, just planks of wood. So planks of wood are not Dalan Minim. And who was that? Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda just told me that what? Planks, that it has to be Dalan Minim. Oh, very good. Proves the Gemara. Alma, Siv, Ve'ikra didikla, Mina dilula. No. Whoa. No. Oh, look at the Gemara. Let's go. You right the first time, Menach. You right the first time. What did you say the first time? No, the first time. That was the second time. Oh. Says the Gemara. Alma, what do we see? Siv, ve'ikra dedikla. Let's go full circle. How did the Gemara begin yesterday? Oh, my Rava. Let's look back. I know we didn't do Chazar, and this is perfect. This wraps us full circle. What did the Gemara begin yesterday? Oh, my Rava. Siv. And if you ikra dedikla, we translate that as strips from the trunk and other parts of the plant. You're allowed to use eschach. Says the Gemara. You know what we see? Mina dilulavahu. It's part of the lulav. Now let's go back in our brains. When we learned the types of lulavim you could bring, if you remember, the Gemara asked, how do you know that when the pasuk says, pasuk doesn't say lulav, pasuk doesn't say which part of the tree. So you remember the Gemara had all these different steps. Is it the branches when they turn hard? And one of the steps was, maybe it's the trunk of the tree. The Gemara said, no, you can't use that for the lulav because it's not possible to be meat, something that needs to be bound. But proves the Gemara today that the bark of the tree is a min of the lulav. So what are we saying right now? We're saying something incredible. That when Rabbi Yehuda said that your schach have to be made of the Dalan Minim, he didn't necessarily mean mamish the Dalan Minim. Someone said, what, you're putting a sroigim up on your schach? No. Maybe that's a tree. Maybe the branches of the esrog, the trunk of the lulav. So it proves the Gemara for the fact of Yehuda said, nisarim, planks of wood. And planks of wood, it doesn't seem like it's from the lulav. Answers the Gemara, yes it does. Where does your lulav have planks of wood? On the trunk. Correct, correct. Oh.
Why would you be able to find?
Interesting. Very interesting. Nachum saying something very interesting. The Gemara yesterday said on the top of the Amid that Loma to Arba Minim. If they come out, we said it's going to come out ridiculous. You're not able to find the Dalan Minim and you're not going to have a sukkah. Frekra Menachem, what do you mean? What do you mean? You could take the trunk of the tree. Very interesting kasha. Very interesting kasha. Interesting kasha. Yeah, but I hear, but that it would be a very big chiddush that the Gemara is switching within Shitas Rav Yehuda without telling us. Pashtus, the Gemara now is telling us this was Shitas Rav Yehuda. Very good question. Kevin, you're into with it, but that's the chiddush of the Gemara right now. That when Rav Yehuda said, no, but opposite, we use it for the schach. The other way. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. We're gonna have to leave it at that. But I do want to just go back for a second and just tie up what we said. Let's just be clear. We quoted a pasuk from Ezra, and the pasuk from Ezra sounded like you could use anything. The Gemara's teretz was Rabbi Yehuda holds that the Daled Minim are for the schach, and everything else is for the walls. So Rabbi Yehuda is sticking to his guns. The Gemara then asks from the Mishnah that says you can use planks of wood. Answers the Gemara means from the trunk of the lulav tree. From the trunk of the lulav tree. Let's go a few more minutes. We're going to stop a few minutes early to get a good chazara in, but let's go for a few more minutes. Says the Gemara, Omiyam Rabbi Yehuda, Barbas Minim. Does Rabbi Yehuda say that only if it's from the Dal and Minim in, then yes, it works? Midi Achrini. But if it's from anything else, Midi Achrina, anything else, Loi, then it doesn't work for your sukkah, for your schach. V'hatanya, but we learned in a brayso, Sichecha bin Nisarim. If you made your schach out of planks. Oh, but now this Mishnah says, what type of planks? Shaleres. Sheish Avar Tfachim. The Divrei Akol Psula. Okay. Ein Bahem Dalit Tfachim. It's only possible. Why? Because it's too wide. If it's not Dalit Tfachim, then what's the halacha? Rabbi Meir Paisel, Rabbi Yehuda Machshir. Okay, we're quoting a brayser right now, which we already know the kasha, right? Because it just said planks of Erez wood, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is kosher. How can that be? Rav Yehuda holding needs to be Dalin Minim. Okay, continue the Gemara. We're just in the middle of a braysa. Umoide Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir is a moide. This is not relevant to us, just the end of the braysa that we're quoting. Shem yesh bein neser leneser. If there is between each plank kimali neser, a blank space the size kimale, like the size of a neser, then what? Shemeiniach, that you can place pesel beinehem, kosher schach in between them, bukashira, and it's kosher. Period. End of the braysa. Okay, the last din the brayso was Rashitas Rabbi Meir. You can't have them next door to each other. You take one out in between and you put the schach in. Beautiful. Says the Gemara. What's the kasha? That's the kasha, question mark. What's the kasha? So we see if it's made out of erez, if it's made out of cedar, it's kosher. But Rav Yehuda just said, what does it have to be made out of? The dalim minim. Erez is not one of the dalim minim, we think. Answers the Gemara. My erez. What does it mean, erez? Hadas. A little bit weird. But let's prove it. Don't jump yet. Kiderabba baravuna. The Omar Rabba Ravuna Amri Bei Rav. They said in the yeshiva of Rav. Asora mini arozmim. Fascinating. There are 10 types of cedar trees. Shenemer etin bamidbar erez shita. Vehadas. Fascinating. Another good trivia question. Are you according to, remember the first trivia question was the shita that holds it has to be dalan minim. The next trivia question was, according to that shita, could he use erez wood? It sounds ridiculous. The answer is yes. Because the erez wood could be a das. Well, you're like, okay, we're going to stop